Hello, I'm Skylar, and I'm going to be doing a 10 to 15 minute video video podcast thing talking about In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. It is a true crime nonfiction novel. It's about the Clutter family getting murdered on November 15th in 1959. And if you hear anything in the background, my brother's in the room next door. So, but what the the type of novel, like I said before, was a nonfiction novel. It switched the way he switches between the characters in the novel is it's when you first start into it, it's a little difficult at first because you don't you have to understand when he's switching because he just switches randomly sometimes. He starts it off with a new paragraph each time he switches, but that paragraph can go on forever or it can be really short. With one, he started off with the Clare family, and I think it was a few weeks beforehand, before the whole murder, and he started off with them, and then he went to the killer's point of view. He went to and he went to the killer's point of view, and he switched back and forth, and then he brought new characters this way as well. Like, he started off with the Clutters, and he introduced the family, and then he brought in the murderers, or the killers, whatever you would like to call them, and he introduced them. But when he was doing the Clutters, he also brought in the whole, the neighborhood characters, the people in the neighborhood. So their neighbors, the people that worked for the Clutters, the cops and all of them that were investigating this, and the people who found the almost groundbreaking evidence that really led them to where they are, what they got the answer for. And that's once you know when he's switching and where he's switching at, it flows nicely and you understand it a lot more. And it's like going in a flashback almost. Because he starts from like a week ahead, I think, before the murders. And then he talks about how Dick and Perry, the killers, were came from Dick's home. They didn't start at Dick's hometown. They started off on the road in the town over from Holcomb, and then they travel to the store to buy the gloves, the materials used to kill them, not the gun, the other materials. And then they went to Holcomb, and they got on their way to Holcomb they got gas, and he talked about all this, and he also talked about what was going on in the Clutter's family life right then and there as their killers were on the way to kill them. And he tells us how he would Mr. Clutter was close to some people in town, closer than up to others in town, or he knew almost everybody in town because Holcomb was a small town and wasn't really known for anything at that point in time. So, and then one of the characters, in my opinion, I feel like he's the one that really committed the murders, but he's not the one they say killed the Clutters in the end. But him and his partner, Perry, were the ones who got the charge for it. But I feel like Dick was the main mastermind behind all of this. But Dick, even after during the trial, he got an insanity. They did try doing an insanity plea for both of them. That didn't pass because one, for Dick, I don't remember why it passed for Perry. It didn't pass for Perry. I think Perry's person said, well, he does have these signs, but they're not. he was conscious at the time of the killings. He was conscious, and in that moment of the time of the killings, he wasn't there. He wasn't somewhere else and then came back like other murderers have. But Dick, he could have had it, but he denied having all of the. He thought he was like the normalest person in the world. Like, he didn't do anything wrong. He never killed anybody, but he did admit later on to the therapist. And then he told his therapist not to tell his lawyer or anybody because he didn't want people to judge him for this. He got in a car accident. Both the murderers got in a car accident. Perry's didn't affect his mentally as much as it did Dick. Before this, Dick was somewhat normal. He didn't think anything like he does now. Or he did. After the accident, he was married before the accident and he has 3 boys. After the accident, he ended up divorcing his wife because he ended up cheating on her and multiple times, but it wasn't with like other women around his age. It was with younger girls that are still in school, and if they didn't want it at all, he wouldn't care. He would rape them. And this also comes back later in the story when they're talking more in depth of, like, the boys are admitting it to the police that they killed these people. Perry ends up admitting that Dick wanted to rape Nancy, who is Mr. Clutter and Mrs. Clutter's daughter, their 3rd eldest, because they tied all the Clutters to the bed. The girls to the bed, and then they tied the son to a couch, and Mr. Clutter was tied up laying on a mattress on the floor in the basement. But Dick wanted to rape Nancy, and he started raping young girls, and he just wasn't the same type of person. But he kept denying it. He kept denying that he was insane, that he committed all these murders, even though Perry said that he killed the 2, the wife and the daughter. He refused to say that he did. He's like, in the book, he's like, I shouldn't even be here. I'm wrongly accused. Yeah, I was there, but if anybody, I didn't kill anybody. If I were to kill somebody, it would have been Perry, because I just watched him shoot 4 people. And if I wanted to have a little bit of sanity, or I could have stopped him and just killed him. Like, he kept repeating that. And then he ended up, I'm rambling now, I'm sorry. He ended up, like, while in prison on death penalty, he started reading law books to see if he could find anything to help him. He never did. He ended up being hung. So did Perry. But that's the general basis, like a character analysis of Dick, and a short little sweet sentence. So, okay, so that was the first segment. It was more about the book and the end. This, I'm going to be talking about the author now, so I'm going to be talking about Truman. Truman was born September 30th, 1924, in New Orleans, Louisiana, U.S., and passed away August 25th, 1984, at the age of 59 in Los Angeles, California. He was an American novelist, screenwriter, playwright, and actor. He also wrote many novels. One you might know of is Breakfast at Tiffany's. 20 pieces of his work were later on turned into TV shows or films. And in his early life, he came from a household that tended to move a lot. At least they said he migrated a lot. His family migrated. I took that as they moved a lot. And not to help with anything, like with his childhood and growing up, but his father was abusive, and his parents ended up getting a divorce. But at the age of 8, Truman ended up finding his love and passion for writing. And he went later on throughout his school years, he practiced his writing skill, and then out of school, or like shortly between the end of school and getting out of school, he wrote short stories and posted them in the newspaper or wherever he could to get money. And then he started writing longer stories, and then he wrote In Cold Blood, and that one was the one that gave him the most fame. And because it was around the time, he wrote it around like a year or so after all of this happened, I think. But it was a true crime. It was something that happened near them. It was something that was going on in their time. So it was a big topic, and it was a strong topic because it took place in a small town. Like, you wouldn't think a murder would happen in a small town, especially to say if you lived in a small town and one of the people that you were closest to got murdered. You would think it would be someone in town, because who comes in from a random town or random area and just decides, oh, I'm going to kill you, and then leaves? I don't believe that that's a normal thing. So to see a novel written about something like this happening, and it was true, it amazed me. When I was reading it, I didn't think it was like, I always thought it was like this was all made up, but I've looked it up on my computer and everything. It's a true thing, and it's still hard to believe for me. So yeah. Okay, this is the third part and the last part of my talk today, and it's about the themes. Like, there can be multiple themes in this book, but the two that I noticed were things happening for a reason. So fate. And I only say this because one of the characters, Perry, he actually thought things did happen for a reason, that everything was leading up to this. Or that was like at the beginning. It was at the very beginning. He didn't really talk about it much at the end, and it kind of like, it was like a background thing. But I do remember him mentioning it once or twice, and Dick was really annoyed about that. But I'm saying that this is a theme because there are certain things that don't like in this book or in this case, that shouldn't normally happen, but they just happen to happen. And I feel things do happen for a reason sometimes. In this case, these must have happened for a reason. The Clutters must have died for a reason. And then sorry, I have a blue light. But I feel like all of the things that happen in this novel, or in this case, all happen for a reason. And I'm proving this by, I say this, things happen for a reason. This would happen because Dick and Perry just happened to be cellmates at one point. And Dick ended up seeing through this that Perry was a perfect murderer, per se, because Perry told a lie to Dick, saying he actually killed a black man. They don't call him a black man in the novel. They call him the N-word. I don't feel comfortable saying that, so I'm not going to. But Perry never ended up doing that. He actually is still friends with that guy, and his this guy has a family of 8, 9, including himself. But he told Dick this, and Dick was like, oh, he has no remorse. He feels nothing, or has, like, murder doesn't scare him. Killing someone doesn't scare him. And this would also lead back to a lot of his mental illness problems because of his. Perry had abandonment issues, I think. I don't know how to describe it. He had a lot of problems. But that Dick had to have met him for a reason. And then it also just so happens that Dick also had another cellmate in a different prison. I don't know if it was a different prison or not, but who ended up actually working for the Clutters, Mr. Clutter, as a farmer help, And he could tell you exactly where their house was, what was around their house, everything. What are the chances of that? But, and then, Perry, after getting out of prison, he was going to meet up with one of his other old cellmates, who was actually a really close friend of his. Well, his cellmate and that guy ended up leaving and disappearing completely. And then he got a letter from Dick, and they ended up meeting up and then doing this. And, because he wasn't, Perry wasn't going to do any of this in the end. He wasn't even planning on going to meet up with Dick, but he was going to go with this guy, and this guy never showed. So he's like, oh, whatever, I'll just go with Dick. I have nobody else. So he ended up doing that. And it just so happened, the night of the murder, Bobby was Nancy's boyfriend, happened to be at the Clutter's house. And then he ended up getting blamed for the Clutter's murder. Well, they tried blaming him, but they couldn't because they had no evidence, and he had an alibi. And then when they committed the murders, the family that was probably a mile or two away, not that far, the only people that lived even nearly close to them, were up and off, asleep and not asleep throughout the whole night, but didn't hear 4 gunshots go off because of their infant that was crying. Or how the dog didn't, the dog was gun shy, but you still heard the dog bark at some point, and that could have alerted the family to go see what's wrong. And it just so happens, this isn't on the Perry side or anything, or Dick's side, but it just so happens that one of the lead cops on the case, his hobby was photographing. If they didn't have him, they wouldn't have been able to find the footprint that would end up later being a huge part of the evidence. So that's the first theme that really stuck out to me. I said this is going to be a 15-minute one. It's going to be up 20 or something. It's fine. And then the second theme, this one I wasn't so strongly about, but I can see where it comes from. It's that people with existing mental illnesses or mental illnesses that they ended up getting as they were growing can be easily manipulated or end up denying multiple different things because they refuse to believe that they're this type of person. I say the second one because of Dick and the first one because of Perry. I'm saying that Perry was, because his whole childhood he was manipulated, his whole life, into thinking he has to be the center of attention, that everything around him was perfect. But that was because everything around him was forcing him to believe that, and that's the only thing that he really thought was true. And then he met Dick, and Dick found this out, kind of, partly, and he used that to manipulate him into working for him. And he ended up having Perry kill the Clutters. And then Perry, he was like, yeah, I did it, but I did it on my own accord. It made it very apparent that he did not do it of his own accord throughout the whole novel. It made it where Dick would tell him to shut up, and Perry didn't think anything of it. He's like, oh, I'm gonna shut up, whatever. So that's how I think that ties in. Dick always manipulating Perry because he found out the trigger that triggered Perry into making him think it was his doing and not Dick's. And this also kind of manipulated Dick into thinking he didn't do anything wrong, because technically he really didn't. If they never said that he did or did not kill one of the 2 or 3 or whatever, any of the Clutters. Yes, Perry said he did at first, but then he took that statement back. but he did kind of manipulated himself in a way of thinking, oh, I didn't do this. It was all Perry. I convinced Perry to do it, so it's not me. It's not my fault. That statement can be true, but it can be wrong at the same time. But Dick constantly believes, and like if he was still alive today, I think he would still believe that he didn't do anything wrong. Yes, he drove the car. Yes, he bought the shotgun. Yes, he bought everything else, and he just gave it to Perry. But he wasn't the one who did it. Yes, he was the one that helped tie them all up. Yes, he was the one that gagged them all, who picked up all the ammo. But he wasn't the one that shot them, so he couldn't do anything wrong. He wasn't even part of it, like in his mind. He thinks he did nothing wrong, and there's no way he could do anything wrong. So, but that's that one. There are many others, and if you really, there's some people that do like really good analysis, and I would recommend you go watch one of their videos. But this, I do recommend this book. It's, I would say like an 8.5 out of 10 for me, only because it was like really slow and hard to get into at first, but once you hit like a certain point, it goes really fast and it's really it's nice. But I did enjoy reading it, and I hope you guys decide to read it one day too. So thank you for watching. Bye bye.